Thank you, Commissioner Mergosh. My name is David Pina. I'm a talent acquisition specialist in the Office of Human Resources here at the City of Boston. Next slide, please. Within there are a variety of departments within within the city or under the City of Boston organization or under the City of Boston, and hold on one second, sorry. So there are multiple departments that we think could potentially be a good place for people with disabilities, to get their foot in the door here at the city. And there are four departments that come to mind. So Boston Center for Youth and Families, Boston Parks and Recreation Department, Boston Public Works Department, and the Boston Public Library. So I did some quick research prior to this meeting, and these four departments have there are about 100 jobs on the career site currently, and a lot of the jobs are with these four departments. So I think that they're could potentially be good places for people to apply to. The types of employment that you would be doing in these departments would be administrative oriented work, so office work. There's some professional jobs also. And others would be like working in on-site community centers, neighborhoods, and parks and things like that. So jobs in the field. The locations of the jobs would be either Boston City Hall, 1010 Mass Ave, or Court Street. Next slide, please. So you can apply online via the City of Boston's Career Center. The link here is obviously boston.gov departments /human resources. And then you can search for open jobs by going to the search box and just indicating a keyword. Or you can just press search and all of the jobs will come up. And then there is you're able to click the link that says apply for this job. And that would prompt you to create a profile. You would fill in all of the necessary information regarding past employment, education, experience, things like that. You would upload your resume, and then you would ultimately hit submit, and your information would be uploaded to the system. And that's when we get it. And, hopefully, you're considered for an opportunity after doing that. So I think that I tend to share with folks that I think is important is that there is on every job description, there is a name for a contact with the department at the top of the job description. And I think if for some reason you haven't heard anything, you're wondering about your candidacy, your status, I think the name is there for you to contact that person. And I think it's, just to say, if you haven't heard anything, can I just get a status on how I'm doing or where I am in the process, or am I going to get an interview or something along those lines? And I think it's okay to be pleasantly persistent if you haven't heard anything in, a week or a couple of weeks, or you use your judgment. But if you haven't heard back and you reach out once, I think, reaching out a week later, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So next slide, please. And questions that anybody might have?
So I can jump in for a minute, David, and just kind of frame, I just want to frame this whole piece of David's presentation.
Sure.
So David is the human resources person, the talent acquisition specialist for the City of Boston. But as I said, there are so many job portals and different departments. Can we go back 2 slides to look at the departments, please? So you'd find these jobs on boston.gov. But again, if you're looking for a job, if you're a nurse and you're looking for a job in the Public Health Commission, you'd go to a different site. If you're looking for a job in the schools, that would be a different site. So as David mentioned, some of the departments that are here are Boston Centers for Youth and Family. And that's, for example, that's a really big department. They have hundreds of employees. Also here, we just gave a sample of the departments that are under this Human Resources Office and this job application. But there's also the Age Strong Commission, which was formerly the Elderly Commission. That's another large department. There are multiple cabinets in the city. My office is under the Health and Human Services Cabinet. So also in that department is Veteran Services, the Office of Fair Housing. There's so many departments in City Hall. I just want to know that this is just a sampling of some of them. But we put these up there because they're really big departments. And like David said, they have over 100 jobs open right now. So some of you, again, may have training as a nurse or a lawyer or, whatever your field is. So it's really important when you do the search, you can search by different categories. And I was going to ask Andrea, my chief of staff, if she wanted to comment on this, because I know she did some work looking at the website and talking about different ways to search.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Hi, everyone. This is Andrea Patton again. I did this search not too long ago when I was looking for a job with the city earlier this year. So there are a couple of screenshots here just to give a visual description. The first in the top left is a screenshot that shows when you click on search for jobs, this is the page you'll get, the welcome page. And so to the point of our webinar today, you'll see here there are links to other city affiliated agencies that have separate application portals. So you'll learn about some of these here today. It's a screenshot of the welcome page with text and a yellow box highlighting words that say, click the links below for more info on job openings within these respective agencies/departments, and then a bulleted list with Public Health Commission, Public Schools, Planning and Development, Water and Sewer Commission. And so then below that, as David was describing, is how you can search. So this is a screenshot of the website that says job listings at the top, and then there's a yellow box around the keyword search option. I put in outreach just because we have an outreach position open. But in the right, there is a blue button that says search. If you put nothing else and just click search, as David said, you'll get the whole list, everything in this portal. But if you want to narrow it, there are two more yellow boxes on the screenshot. One is for a drop-down menu of category. That is where you can choose administrative or communications or human services. It's really the content of the job you're looking for. And the final yellow box just next to it is for a drop-down menu with position type. So maybe you're looking for full-time employment. Maybe you're looking for part-time. Maybe you're looking for not permanent employment, but a period, right? You're looking for a 6-month contract or something like that. Position type is where you will find that. The final screenshot on this page is on the right. It's an example of a job posting. It says Recreation Resource Development Manager. There are several gray boxes underneath it with information such as the department, the contact email, as David was talking about. I have a yellow box around where you'll see the pay range, the minimum and the maximum for this position, as well as a yellow box around the apply for this job blue button. And so my advice is click around, search by category, search by position type, send email to the person if you have a question before you apply. All the information is here for you to find exactly what you're looking for. Thank you, Commissioner, and I'll hand it back to you and David.
Great, thanks, Andrea. And just a couple final points I want to make that are really important. First of all, I like to say that the city welcomes equity and inclusion. So they encourage people with disabilities to apply for jobs. And the good thing about the city is we have such a variety of jobs. I always say it's anyone from a GED to a PhD. So I don't want anyone to feel like they wouldn't be qualified for a job. I believe we have jobs that would meet everybody's particular interests, skills, and requirements. And one little glitch in the system I want to let people know about is that when you're uploading documents on this particular portal, there's no separate place to upload a cover letter. So when it says upload resume, make sure you put your cover letter as the first document in that upload, because we don't want to miss out on your cover letter. A cover letter is really important because it tells us a little bit about who you are and why you want the job and what makes you stand out among the other candidates. And then finally, I will just say that, reach out to David, keep in touch with me and my staff, and, we wish you the best on your job search. And for people who don't have computers, David, is it still the case that they can come into City Hall and use the computer?
Yeah, there are, we have iPads in HR that they can utilize. And I believe there's also a desktop computer as well that they could utilize.
Great. And we know this type was a little bit small for the screen, but we will be sending out the deck to anybody who's interested, so you can refer to this information and these instructions as you pursue your job search. So with that, I'll turn it back to Andrea to introduce our next speaker.
So I believe David Pia has been able to join via phone. So David, I will just ask you to unmute and offer a brief visual description as you dive in. Thank you for joining.
Yes, thank you. And sorry that I'm only here by phone. There was some technical difficulties. My name is David Pia. I'm the Human Resources Director at the Boston Planning and Development Agency. And next slide, please. And so the Boston Planning and Development Agency is an agency of about 260 people. But as you can see from the list on the screen, we have very many departments. We do such a broad range of work, from communications to finance. We have a legal office. We do the work for development and planning. We manage real estate throughout the city of Boston. And of course, we have those internal departments that need to help a department function: human resources, information technology. One of the things that's also included at the Boston Planning and Development Agency is the Office of Workforce Development. And so that's another big department that works with within the city of Boston on supporting the workforce and helping people attain skills and job training so that they can enter or grow within the workforce. Next slide. So there are many types of employment at the agency. There's employment that is specific to certain areas of expertise, depending on what each of your individual backgrounds is. But that can be within planning and development, which is the planning and development of buildings and of green space. Within real estate, we own property throughout the city of Boston that we have to maintain and manage and that we rent out. And so we have people that have expertise in leasing. We have a lot of technology jobs within our IT department. Of course, we have jobs within finance, budget, and procurement. As I mentioned, workforce development has many different areas that include administrative and program management, case management, youth programming, an Office of Financial Empowerment, and policy and planning jobs. Our jobs, we have 4 locations throughout the city of Boston. We have employees that are located on the 9th floor of City Hall, at 43 Hawkins Street, 7 Palmer Street in Roxbury, and also at 22 Dry Dock Ave down over in the Seaport area. Next slide. So we do use a different portal than the city of Boston does, but some of the functionality is very similar when they talk about the search functions. So to keep that in mind from some of what has just been spoken about. But you can apply online through the Boston Planning and Development Agency website. You would log on to that website and go to the careers. There's a link called careers at BPDA, which is showing up in green in the top part of the slide. And then you would search for the open jobs under career opportunities. This is where you could use the functions to search by keyword, by category, by position type. For example, part-time, full-time. You will, once you select a job, you'll see the job description, the essential functions, and the salary range for this position. You can then click a link at the bottom that says apply for this job online to create your profile and upload your resume. Next slide. So these are just some screenshots of what I had just spoken about. So as you can see, this is the Boston Planning and Development Agency, a screenshot of the careers page. You can see on the left-hand side where it says in the middle, careers at the BPDA. And then in the middle of the page, there's a box that you can click for career opportunities, and another one that will show our internship opportunities. Next slide. Once you click on career opportunities, you will then be shown a list of the current jobs that are open. And as you can see from this screenshot, the first one listed as project assistant. We have a GIS, Geographical Information Systems Application developer, and all of our positions would be listed on this page. Next slide.
David, there's a question in the chat. Can you define GIS?
GIS is Geographical Information Systems. So it's a technology that uses it pinpoints locations, and so you can use technology to use data to sort of look at locations of businesses or buildings or different things to try to get an idea of things that may be happening.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Once you click on a job, then you will see that there is in the middle of the page that you see now, it says apply for this job online, and that's where you would click, and then you would fill out the requested information and upload your resume. I do want to make one note that we actually are changing to a new application system on November 24th. It'll still be accessed through the BPDA website, and will have very similar functionality. It's just going to be through a different vendor, but the same concepts will still apply. You will go through our website. You will see a careers landing page. When you click that, it'll bring you to the list of jobs. You would click on a job. You would see the information about that job, and there will be another apply for this job button that you can select. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
So David, this is Commissioner McCosh again, and I just wanted to kind of unpack some of the things you said and frame it for our participants. So the BPDA, I know there are a lot of initials, just to let everybody know that it's the former BRA, the Boston Redevelopment Authority. And I believe you said you have 260 or so employees, is that right?
Yes, we have about 260 employees, yes.
And do you have an idea of how many open jobs you have right now?
Right now, we have about 20.
20? Okay. So you can see the
20.
difference. The BPDA it's a medium-sized agency for the city, but the city hall piece that we did at first has thousands and thousands of employees. So again, we want you to think about your interests and what types of jobs you're looking for. And I think David made a really good point of saying, if you're a lawyer, you don't just have to work in the law department. If you're interested in working in technology, you don't have to just work for our Department of Innovation and Technology. Every office probably has a tech person. So maybe you want to work in Age Strong and they have someone who teaches computers to seniors. So really, search it by your field if you're interested. And then, like Andrea said earlier, just click all around and see what's online to see what might catch your interest and what you might be interested in. But I want to ask David Pia and David Pina, who I can see is still on the screen. Are all these jobs, do they all require Boston residency? David Pia?
Yes, all of the jobs do require Boston residency.
And do
That's-
people have a time? I'm sorry, David Pina? Yes.
That's true for the city of Boston as well. Boston residency is required. Something to keep in mind, though, is that it's not required that you be a Boston resident when you apply. So you could apply and live wherever. On the first day of employment or before that, you would need to be a resident of the city of Boston. So that's the residency requirement, essentially.
Okay.
That's how it works.
And David Pia, does the BPDA give people time to move into the city? Like, is there like a 6-month window or anything like that?
There is not. Like the city of Boston, you have to be a resident on or before the first day of work.
Okay. So keep that in mind, participants. You don't have to be a resident to apply. So get your applications in, and then you can always, figure out your other circumstances if you get the job. So Andrea, I can turn it back to you if you have any other commentary you'd like to add.
There's a question here from Mr. Lyons. If you could say a BPDA, is that what it, I don't recall what it stands for, but there are lots of jobs and I'm looking for some management financing or budgeting. Is that included?
So at BPDA, as well as probably in many of the departments throughout the city, and in the next agency I'll also be speaking about, there are departments, finance and budget departments within them that help run the agency. So BPDA stands for Boston Planning and Development Agency, and we do have a finance and budget office, and occasionally we do have jobs that become available within those offices. So I just recommend that you just continue to look at the website and watch what becomes available if there's a certain department that's of interest to you.
Hi, and this is Commissioner McCosh again. And it does go back to what I said a few minutes ago that, a budget is kind of a generalist job, budget and accounting. So many departments are going to have someone have a role for that type of person who's interested in that. But I want to switch gears to go back to David to talk about the next agency, because I know he has a tight schedule today. So David Pia, can I turn it back to you?
You can, thank you. So I'm also happy here to be presenting on behalf of the Boston Public Health Commission. Before I came to the Boston Planning and Development Agency, I spent 19 years as the Director of Human Resources at the Boston Public Health Commission. The same with regards to residency, the same information holds true. You don't have to be a resident to apply for a job, but you do need to be a resident on or before your first day of employment. Next slide. The Boston Public Health Commission is about 1,250 employees, so it's a much bigger agency than planning and development. And it's broken down into many departments and the types of services that they provide. Violence prevention and trauma, homeless services, parenting, pregnancy and family services, healthy eating, active living, youth, infectious disease, environment, recovery services, emergency medical services, public health preparedness, mental health, school health, and there's many more. That's just a sample of some of the programmatic areas that people can be employed within. Next slide. The types of employment are also very broad. So this is going to hold true for some of those examples, the IT and budget and finance. The Boston Public Health Commission also has a whole separate IT department, a budget and finance department. There's a lot of administrative work that goes on throughout the entire agency. We also do case management and counseling, program and project management. We have a communications department, a research department. We do public health nursing, both within infectious disease and within, we have school health nurses that work in the schools. We provide emergency medical services. All the EMTs and paramedics in the city of Boston work for the Boston Public Health Commission. We have homeless shelters in the city, so all of the homeless shelter staff work for the Boston Public Health Commission. We offer public health preparedness, health access, environmental health, and also public health nursing. The location of the jobs are, the main offices are at 1010 Mass Ave, and also various locations throughout the city at different shelters and clinics. Next slide. So to apply for a job at the Boston Public Health Commission, you would go to the Boston Public Health Commission website. At the top in the green, you can see what that website address is. Once you get there, you will click on a button, as you can see, where it says select the careers icon, and there's an arrow that points down to a logo that says careers underneath it. You would click that button. Next slide. And that would bring you to the next page, where you can then do a search, just like we've described with the City of Boston in planning and development. You can do a search based on the same types of keywords and areas of interest, and whether you want full or part-time. And then this is where you'll also see the list of jobs. And if you go to the, and if you click on a job, if you go to the next slide, that will show you the job. It'll show you the hours. If it's not a Monday through Friday 9 to 5, it could be a Tuesday through Saturday, depending on where the job is. It'll show you the description of the job, the pay range of the job, and there will be a button on the right-hand side that you can see that it's a yellow circle around a blue button, and that's where you would click the apply button. And this is where you would then fill out the sections on your education experience and upload your resume. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes, hello, hi. I had my hand raised, but I don't think it's working.
Hi, Ashley. Sorry, it is working. We wanted to make sure David got through his presentation before he has to leave. But yes, we definitely want to hear your question. We'll get it answered. Go ahead.
Yes, I actually have a question for him, and I don't remember the lady's name from Boston Housing, but my good question is, if there is a resident from the city of Boston that wants to apply to work for the city of any one of these jobs, what does it affect that person that receives government assistance such as Section 8? Because if I'm correct, you cannot work for the city if you're receiving that type of government assistance. Is that true or not? Or does it affect the person from applying, discourage that person from applying to work for the city? Or you cannot do that because you're receiving that type of government assistance?
Hi, so this is Commissioner McCosh. I can speak to that a little bit. So we know people with disabilities have complex needs, especially related to government assistance, Social Security, Medicaid, things like that. So I would encourage you to work with a case manager if you have one. Social Security also has several programs that allow people to work. They have a program called Ticket to Work. They have a trial work period that you can utilize so you won't lose benefits. Section 8, I believe, wouldn't be related so much to employment, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But again, I know it is a very complex and confusing to try to figure out benefits and employment. And that's one of the things we're trying to do right now is break down these barriers. So I think you've given us a good idea for our next webinar, which will be looking at disability benefits and employment. So if you want to give us your email, we can follow up with you about that. But that's a great reminder to all the participants to keep that in mind. If you are getting benefits right now, employment may affect them. So you definitely want to keep that in mind. So thank you for raising that very important point, and we will get information back to you.
Well, yeah, so I was just wondering, Mr. Pia knew that question as well, since they are BPDA, and I am an affordable housing by BPDA.
So if I don't believe, and again, I'm not positive, I don't believe if, say, you went to work for Boston Public Health Commission, putting aside whether the earning of the income would have any effect on benefits, I don't believe that the housing would matter there. At BPDA, because we participate in providing those things, you couldn't work and have that at BPDA, I don't believe. Just at our agency, because we do the housing compliance.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. I was just wondering, could you clarify that? So the person wouldn't be able to work and have housing with BPBA? Is that accurate? Did I hear that correctly?
I'm not 100% sure, but we are the ones that oversee some housing compliance. So I know that, for instance, our employees can't go through the voucher program through our housing compliance because it's our own department. But I believe if they work someplace else in another department, they may be able to.
David? Hi.
Yeah.
This is Marina Litzer, HR at Boston Public Housing. I used to be the HR director at the Boston Planning and Development Agency. And what David is referring to is what is considered the affordable housing program, which is if you are purchasing a house through the program, then you won't be eligible to work at the PPDA because we also manage the lottery system, and it's, trying to keep it fair. With regards to Boston Housing Authority, which is BHA, which is where I'm at, we have many what we consider Section 3 residents. So that's anybody in Section 8 or actually residents of our public housing. We also manage some state housing, and we have over 100 of those working here, and we highly encourage that. And I know I'm ahead of myself because I will present in a little bit, but we don't require residency to the city of Boston. So you could live in the greater Boston area, you can be in a different state, we welcome all. I'll explain why later.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I do have another question. I cannot seem to find the hand raising feature, so please forgive me. I think my question would kind of fit in between what you said and what the person before you just said. I'm gonna just ask it, and if it needs to be tabled, I completely understand. So the lottery program for housing, you can do that program, but you cannot be. But what if you have like a Section 8 something, right? And then you want to see if the possibility of getting into the lottery programs are any kind of thing that you can actually do as a person who's differently enabled. Would anybody be able to like speak to that and how that works? Also with obtaining employment within any of these entities that have been mentioned?
Hi, Ruthie. This is Andrea with the Boston Disabilities Commission. That is a fabulous question that I want to make sure we answer in some detail because that implicates both conflict of interest as well as income levels, as well as several other things. So we will get an answer to your question. You have my word, and we'll send it to everyone. It's a great question, but in the interest of time for our folks who do have to hop off, if you don't mind, I am going to table it. I have your email, so I know I'll get back to you, but I will get the answer to anyone else. The big picture question. Yep, we'll get it to everyone. So the big picture answer to your question is there are a lot of opportunities for affordable housing in the city. They are in a couple of different agencies and options, and they're a little complicated, but the Office of Housing Stability in the city has case managers to help you navigate that. So that's the really short answer for everyone, but I will follow up with everyone who sends in their email to me with a detailed answer. So thanks, Ruthie.
And
oh, you got.
I'll just jump back in. It's Commissioner McCosh. I was going to say, since we were talking about BHA, why don't we, Andrea's on the same page, we'll jump to BHA, and Andrea will put in the chat the our email address for people to email us, and also the Office of Housing Stability, so you can get those questions answered. But now I will turn it over to Maureen.
Thank you, Kristen. So this is again Miranda Litzer at the Boston Housing Authority. And you know, we have about 800 employees, and we are a little bit unique and similar to the Boston Planning and Development Agency. We are, and I would say, a different entity entirely legally. So we are created back in the 1930s from HUD, which is the Federal Housing and Urban Development. We get our money from Congress. And what we essentially do is manage affordable housing properties, as well as the Section 8 voucher program. We have about 58,000 families that go through us in total, and about 50,000 on the wait list. So there's a bigger need than there is a supply. But we, you know, so it's a federal program. We also manage a few state properties as well. So altogether, we have over 63 development properties around the Boston area. Each city has their own housing authority. So once you get out of Boston, you've got Cambridge Housing Authority, Somerville Housing Authority, you know, Springfield Housing Authority. So in a sense, where we're located all around the city. Our main headquarters are at 52 Chauncey Street. As I mentioned, that's where my office is. And what else? We have many, many different departments. We have our functional support departments, such as IT, human resource, our legal department, our finance department, our administration. And we, that would be those support functions. And then a big portion is our Section 8 program. So we have leasing officers and everything to do with getting people through the application process, accepting them as voucher holders, and then doing making sure that we work with the landlords to inspect properties and get them ready and for our applicants to live in. And then on the other side, which is our property management side, it's the same thing. It's working through to get the applicants approved and working to get them a unit in one of our developments. A lot of the jobs around property management on that side is everything you can think of that has to do with managing a building, right? So everything from our office managers to our groundskeepers, all the trade folks. We've got our plumbers, our carpenters, our plasters, our electricians, really any everything that to keep a property working and healthy. We also have a resident capacity program. We're really trying to engage with our residents and hear them. We've got different committees. We do unity days. And I guess that in a nutshell is the BHA. We have about 12 open positions. We do not require residency because under HUD and under the state, we cannot discriminate. I wouldn't call it discriminate, but we cannot restrict where people live. And so, so we don't have that. And it's very, very easy to apply. We're still very old school. If you want a job that is listed on our website, we've got about a dozen open right now. All you have to do is email us a resume and let us know which position you're interested in. So it's hrjobs@bostonhousing.org. So hrjobs@bostonhousing.org. We keep it simple. Eventually we will automate, but at this point, we're easy. It's very easy to apply, and we welcome everybody. So happy to answer any questions. Yeah.
Maureen, this is Commissioner McCosh. So you have 12 jobs open roughly. Is that typical for you? Do you usually have more open or less, or
We usually, Sure. We actually usually have less. I would say the pandemic has given us some recruitment challenges, but we used to have maybe, even though we're at 800 employees, we usually have 3 to 4 a month openings. People who come here stay here. Our retention rate is very high. People are here 20, 30 years. We're part of the city's pension plan. Our healthcare is through the GIC, through the state. So,
Wow.
it's great.
And one thing I didn't ask any of the panelists yet, but I wonder if you know for your agency, do you have a specific ADA coordinator, or what if applicants had questions about their disability, or they needed a reasonable accommodation in order to apply? Who do they go through for that?
Sure. So we actually have an Office of Civil Rights, and as part of that, they handle all AD and A requests that come in. We have a lot of applicants and residents, right, that as they're applying are asking for reasonable accommodations. And as we transfer residents as well, the same thing, they need reasonable accommodations. So the same thing for us. When you become an employee, you just put in your reasonable accommodation request, and we work with you to get what you need.
And can I ask David Pena? I see
Yep.
you're still here. Do you have an ADA person?
I'm not aware of an ADA person within HR. That said, the diversity office, I think, could potentially have someone for that. I don't know for certain, but I would think that folks with disabilities would fall underneath the diversity umbrella.
Okay, and David Pierre, are you still on? I think he had to jump off early.
That is correct.
Okay, so so everybody knows, you are entitled to request reasonable accommodations if you need them for your disability. And that's another thing we could do a whole webinar on. So I don't want to get into all the details right now because it's very specific depending on your needs and the place you're working for, the type of job you're applying for, what the request is. So again, I think we'll have a third webinar coming up on reasonable accommodations. But with that, we will see, do we have questions about the BHA? I see Mairead has one.
Mairead has a question. I don't know if you want to read it out yourself, Mairead, but I'm happy to. For all presenters, if the applicant applies and they're being contacted by one of these agencies, by your agency, is the phone number going to come up as anonymous or unknown number, or will it say Boston City Hall, or at least have a number? Do you know how your phone call will present to an applicant? They don't want to miss a call because it says unknown number, right?
Right. Generally speaking, as far as I know, our numbers come up 617-635. The first 3 numbers after the area code. So I unless someone chooses to make the call anonymous, or I don't think that happens automatically. So I think that there would be you'd have some sense that it's, well, you'd have some sense, I think, that it's the city.
And from the BHA, yep, hi. From the Boston Housing Authority, our is 617-988. Unless they're using a BHA cell, which usually would be 617-504. I don't think we ever do anything anonymous. And we also will email. So you'll get both. And
David and Moran, what is usually the first point of contact that an applicant would get from either of your agencies if they were considered for a job? Would it be an email? Would it be a phone call?
So, sorry, go ahead, David.
Oh, sorry, Moran. It would probably be an email initially. So they'll get an email saying that we received it. It's an automatic generated email. And then someone from HR would probably reach out to them initially via email, but it could be by phone. I do both, depending on the amount of time I have. But so I think my preference would probably be more phone than email, but that's just me.
So we don't have a system quite yet, so no automatic generated email. If a hiring manager feels that candidate would, has a list of candidates they feel are qualified for the job, they will reach out to them, usually via phone call first to schedule an interview. And if they can't reach them by phone, they will email them. That's pretty much that.
And then what is the process when people are considered for a job? Is it a first round interview, a second round interview? How does that process work? I'll start with David.
Yep. So generally there's with being in, I guess in COVID, in this COVID times, it's probably a phone screen. So an initial interview, via phone, and then it could be, depending on the department, it could be a Zoom meeting, or they would bring you in into the office. And I would say it's, probably 2 to 3, 3 at the most, maybe two steps in the process.
And Moran?
For us, I think it really depends on the manager, but we have 7 unions here, and most roles, jobs that are posted are union. And so once you're invited to an interview, there's usually a panel consisting of half union members and the hiring manager and whoever else they've invited to interview. And usually once that is conducted, scoring sheets are provided, and whichever candidate gets the highest score is offered the position. So there's not too many, is it loops or rounds?
Great. All right,
Hey
any
everyone,
final
this is
questions?
Andrea with the Boston Disabilities Commission. I see 2 folks with their hand raised. In the order they appear on my screen, I see Maria and then Ashley. So Maria, do you want to unmute? Okay, it appears Maria might be having some difficulty unmuting. We'd still love to hear from you, Maria, but I'll start with Ashley.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you? I have a few questions, but I think I can remember at least 3 of them. One of the first questions was for Boston Housing is that going back to if a resident, so if a resident has a voucher and they wanted to work for the city, can they work for Boston Housing, but their voucher is from Metro Housing? Can they do that, or they cannot do that?
So hi, Ashley. That's a great question. No, we accept anybody. Doesn't matter where you live or what voucher program you're a holder of.
Okay, thank you for that question. Now, my second question, it seems like Mr. David.
Ashley, can I just jump in on that?
Oh, sorry.
Ashley, that's all right. I just want to, while we're on that topic, I just want to remind people that even if your housing may not be affected, Social Security and Mass Health could be affected. So just make sure you research everything that is accurate to your particular situation and your income guidelines.
Oh, okay.
Sorry,
Thank you for letting me know that. Okay.
And I see Maria has been able to unmute herself. So Ashley, I'm sorry, I'm going to ask you to pause on your second question just so that Maria can get her first question out, if that's all right, and then we'll come back around.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Maria Depina. I'm really interested when you guys talking about the housing, because I'm not one of the person that really looking for a receptionist positions, because I haven't helped people in the community, and with all the help they needs, with all their needs. So it's really important. I mean, really happy because I heard about it, because I'm one of the person that we encourage everyone in the community and assist them with the program and the housing authority.
Hi, everyone. This is Andrew at the Disabilities Commission. It sounds like there are a lot of questions about the intersection between housing and employment, both specifically with the city, questions about, say, conflict of interest working for BPDA, and just general questions about how does employment affect your income and therefore potentially your eligibility for things like vouchers. Those are fabulous questions and we really do want to answer them. They're also questions that tend to be very person specific. So for the interest of time, I would like to move on right now to the general content about the Boston Public Schools, but we will be in touch to provide further guidance to help you answer your questions. We will be in touch. We do want to help with this question. We know how important it is, but we want to be able to give you the attention, the specific attention that your case deserves in that case. So I am going to add one more general question from the chat before I move to Boston.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my second question was for the BPDA, is that Mr. Pierre mentioned that on the slide that it said they no longer do paper applications. So for those who feel that they need more of accommodation and rather do a paper application, so they're not willing to accommodate that, you must apply online. Is that what it's a demand? Is that so?
So
I can jump in on this.
I can also jump just because I implemented the recruiting platform there when I was HR director.
Great.
I would say that the city PBDA and as well as Boston Housing, we've moved away from when you would mail in a resume, and that's what they mean by a paper application. It's when you are just mailing us, in the mail, a resume or an application, and most agencies have moved away from that because it's very hard to track. It's very hard to input into the computer. So most places are going to ask you to either apply online or even with us, just email us a digital copy of your resume.
If there is a particular accommodation that you need, you can always request that of any agency and work with the equity team, the ADA coordinator team, if there is a reason. So we'd be happy to follow up specifically, Ashley, if there's a particular accommodation you require that can be sorted out.
Thank you.
Hi, Ashley. It's Kristen McCosh again. I just wanted to, that's the comment I was going to make too, that reasonable accommodation requests are usually pretty specific and related to individuals, whereas this policy is just the general policy, like everybody said. So that's not to say that you couldn't just apply by, like Moran said, emailing your resume potentially, but you would have to work one-on-one with the hiring agency to figure out what that accommodation would be. But thank you, that's a great question. And now I'll turn it back to Andrea for
Thank
our
you.
last agency.
Yep. So our final agency is the Boston Public Schools. And unfortunately, at the last second, our representative, John Barrows, the Director of Human Resources, is unable to attend. So you get to hear my voice and see my face on the screen to discuss the Boston Public Schools. That said, as with every other presenter today, we are recording, we are keeping track of the chat. So any questions that you have will be noted, and I will stay on after the scheduled end time to hear any questions that can't be put in the chat, and we will get you an answer. So while you unfortunately don't get to hear directly from John today, you can and will if you have specific follow-up questions. So the Boston Public Schools, or BPS, as you may hear it, has 122 schools across the city, from K through 12, excuse me, all kinds of formats serving all of the city's kids and youth. There are also central office departments to do the central management of the process of running 122 schools. The kinds of employment that you can find with BPS includes hourly employment, everything from custodians to lunch monitors to riding the buses and vans that do door-to-door transportation for the SPED, S-P-E-D, as it's listed, Special Education Department. There are paraprofessionals. So these are maybe teachers' aides or personal direct aides for students with disabilities, or other full-time employment that may or may not require a licensure or a full-time degree, a four-year degree. Of course, there are teachers. So if any of you are trained and licensed to teach in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, 122 schools need a lot of teachers for all kinds of content, including substitute teachers if you're not looking for full-time employment. And then there are managerial positions from program coordinators, project managers, analysts, data analysts, technology projects and programs. There are all kinds of special events and special projects that BPS runs. The location of the jobs varies by the school and by the department. So obviously, if you're located in a school as a teacher or a custodian, you could be just about anywhere in the city. The central office departments are primarily in Nubian Square, if you were to work in one of the more administrative positions. In order to apply to a BPS job, you will find all the postings online. The website is hyperlinked here. And again, we will send this out to anyone who would like it so that you can click directly from the presentation. And then you can search for open jobs, much like every other portal that we've talked about today. You can search by keywords. You can search by a specific location. Say you live across from a school and you really just want to work across the street. You can search by the open jobs that exist in that school, or you can search by position title. So again, I mentioned substitute teaching. If you want to be a substitute teacher, you can search by that title. When you get the list of jobs, as with the other portals, you can click on the job title and it will give you a list with the description, the responsibilities, the qualifications, whether there is a licensure requirement. For example, teaching obviously requires state licensure or not. When you want to apply, there's a button that says apply for this position. It will prompt you to create a profile, as all the other portals will. They ask you to fill in the sections of the application that are on the screen and to add a cover letter. So this is a keynote for Boston Public Schools. They recommend using the open text field option on the screen rather than uploading a cover letter document. The system doesn't allow you to customize your cover letter via upload, but it does allow you to customize it through the open text field. That said, you do still upload your resume. So for Boston Public Schools, upload your resume, type in your cover letter in the open text field when you apply. This slide has two screenshots of the Boston Public Schools job portal. On the left is a listing of jobs. It says job listings at the top. There's a search bar, and then there are 5 jobs listed there. To the right, I've put a yellow box around the location column where you can see whether it's located, for example, at Mattahunt Elementary, New Mission High, Young Achievers K-8 school, et cetera, et cetera. On the right is an example of a job description. This time it's for instructional coach grades K-12. It's a body of text. In the top right corner, though, is a blue box that says apply now, and it has a button that says apply to this job. Further down in the body of text, I have put yellow boxes around 2 different sections of the text, one saying qualifications -required and one saying qualifications -preferred. So Boston Public Schools does break out what is absolutely an essential requirement versus the preferred qualifications that they'd like to see, but are not part of the essential requirements. So for example, this one says, hold a valid Massachusetts teaching license in appropriate content area. That's a requirement. But underneath it, experience working in an urban setting at least 4 years. That's something that if you don't meet that, you're not disqualified. Again, questions, please put in the chat, raise your hand and I can write them down. Or I have put down here the contact information for John himself if you want to email him. John can be emailed at jbarrows, BARROWS 3 @bostonpublicschools.org. And there is a specific contact for ADA accommodations, and that email is bpsequity@bostonpublicschools.org. Again, we will email this to anyone who would like a copy.
This is not working. Oh my God.
Hi, Ashley. I saw that you raised your hand again. Do you have another question?
Oh, I never could see the hand being raised, so I never think it's working. I apologize for interrupting so many times. Yes, I do have a question about the Boston Public Schools. If someone, if there was a candidate that wanted to apply for the athletic, like, like basketball coach or work in the gymnasium, what is the qualifications for that? And do you have to have a degree or some type of experience doing that type of job? And what is it a regular entry level job at that?
That is a fabulous question.
You.
Unfortunately, an example of one that I don't know, but I'm writing it down as we speak to email John and ask him. So what are the qualifications or potential licensures for sports, gymnasium, team coaching? I will ask.
Yeah, and experience.
Ashley, this is Kristen McCosh again, the commissioner. I just want to say too that most of those things should be listed in the job description. It will say what the qualifications are. Andrea went through some of them. Every job description should have requirements and preferred experience or education, things like that. But if you really look at the job description, I think that will answer a lot of your questions.
Okay, thank you.
Great. And does anyone else have their hand?
Well, I didn't have my hand up, but I wrote my question in the chat. But there's when I did the applications for the schools, it asked later, well, it was at the top, but I overlooked it. It asked that you first send your application to a career pool, kind of like a pool for someone to review it. Then they send it. Does that sound like something you know about?
I have not heard of that. And I think that is something that John would need to answer. So we will definitely take that back to him. And I did put our email in the chat earlier, but in case you missed it, it's very easy to remember. It's just disability@boston.gov. So unfortunately, I don't believe we captured people's emails who are attending today. Did we do that, Andrea?
So we did not require registration for this event. So what we would like you to do, if you want a copy either of the slide deck or of the recording or both, to either put your email in the chat right now. If you're not comfortable with that, you can email us disability@boston.gov. I got the alert on my phone. At least one of you already has, so thank you. And just let me know if you want the slides, the presentation, or both, and I will get that out to you later today. Tripetta, to your question, I think, I was going to say, I think there's a chance that it wasn't that you had to do anything specific. They may have just been letting you know first you'll get reviewed by HR, then they'll send you to the school. That's possible. I don't know, but I will follow up with John and find out.
Great. And I think there was one other question in the chat.
So there was one a while back that I wanted to flag for our folks, our panelists, while we still have them. Do your agencies have internship programs or other programs where you could try out different kinds of jobs that you might be interested in, such as shadowing different workers during a period of time? So David and Moran, I don't know if you all can answer that.
David, you want to start?
Sure. So the city of Boston does have internships, and they are listed when we have them on the city of on where you find the job opportunities. If you scroll down, there's something for internships. We don't get a ton of them. But when we do have them, they are offered there. There is also a way that if you'd like, you can fill out an application. And then what I do is I share it with the departments that you expressed interest in and ask them, are you in need of an intern? And they would respond to the individual. So if there's not something advertised, you can still apply, and I'll share with departments, and then departments will make the call as to whether or not they need someone. So there's not really a shadowing opportunity, though, that I'm aware of. I hope that helps.
So hi.
Moran?
Yeah, this is Miranda.
BHA.
Similar to the city, we have an internship program. We run a summer youth program. We run co-ops. We work with the YMCA Training Inc. And so we have those, and I'm always asking department heads if they need any interns, if there's any projects going on. We don't have a shadowing, similarly to the city. And I haven't really seen just people sending in their resumes looking for internship opportunities. I really try to push our managers to create ones, and then we advertise them. That's usually how we go about it.
Great. And then there was another question in the chat about remote work. David, I can ask you about the City of Boston's policies for working virtually now, post-COVID or during COVID.
Right. As far as I know, everybody's back to the office working. I'm not sure that there aren't very many people working remote. I think we're all instructed to come back, as I understand it.
And Moran, what about BHA?
We are, it depends on your position. There are many folks that are required 100% to be, on the site, on the job site, because if you're a plumber or an electrician, you really can't work from home. For those who can, based on their job, we still require folks to be in 3 or more days a week. So the maximum amount that people can work remotely would be 2 days if their job allowed for it.
Question?
Yes, I have
I
a
have a
question.
question as well.
Yes. You recently said something about telephone interviews. If someone is deaf, there would be like a video relay service. Would that be a problem? Very often people hang up on the video relay service and don't realize that there's a live person on the other end. So is there a way to avoid that? Very often they assume that it's a prank call. And we deaf people get very frustrated because we need an interpreter for those. Are people in the Boston City agencies, are they aware of the need for the video relay services, such as Sorensen Video Relay Service or other relay services where deaf people are calling using a remote interpreter?
Hi, this is Andrea with the Boston Disability Commission. I just want to say that the City of Boston Language of Communications Access Office subscribes to 2 different video relay services, so that anytime a constituent requests or needs video relay, we have 2 different options. It is also the practice for all interpretation that if it is a planned interaction for something like an interview, we hire an in-person interpreter, a live interpreter, whether it's remote or in person. If it's a planned interaction, the standard is to have a live interpreter, and then to use the language line or the VRI if someone just walks in and has a question. But yes, the Office of Language and Communications Access has all of those resources and does regular trainings to make sure folks know. And if you ever encounter a department that you're applying to that does not know for some reason, we can work with you.
And hi, it's Krista McCosh again. I just want to add in a little advertising for my department that we do currently have 3 job openings, and One of them is for an ASL interpreter, full-time ASL interpreter for the city of Boston. So if anybody knows anybody who'd be interested, please spread the word on that one.
Hi, is it okay if I can say something? Because I think there's something wrong on my end.
Go ahead, Ashley.
Okay, hi. Well, one of them questions was for you because I'm having trouble sending a request for the recording and slides. If it's okay, you can send that to me as well in my email. Mine is bajagk@gmail.com.
Yeah, well, I'll happily stay on after we have 3 minutes left, and I'll stay on for the next 15 minutes, however long it takes to get your email.
I'll just
Yeah.
make it real quick. For Miss Moran, for BHA, I am interested also in their internship programs. I did apply for one, which they had one in person for application, but I never heard anything back. And someone from the legal department at BHA actually helped me with that. And also for Mr. DePina, the same thing. They had like this program that was for the city, where it's like a 1-year program. You work, it's unpaid at City Hall. So I kind of was wondering, they still have that program going on as well.
So I'm sorry, Ashley, it was a one, did you say 1 year program?
Yeah, it was for 1 year. I applied, they sent me a response back saying my application was halfway good, but they didn't choose me. And I think I'm now past a certain age limit as well.
Yeah, I'm not aware of the program that you're referring to. That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. I'm not aware of it. Do you remember what the name? If you want to email me, my information is in the chat, and we could try to figure out what it is, but it's not something that rings a bell to me.
Yeah, I forget names really quick, but yeah, it was through the city. I can find it and then email you.
Right.
But thank you.
Yep. Great.
Fabulous. Hi, everyone. This is Andrea. We are right at time at 3:29. So I just want to briefly address this wrap-up slide and read out to anyone who's hopping off the websites where you can find more information. City of Boston is boston.gov. The Boston Planning and Development Agency is bostonplans.org. That's PLANS, plural.org. The Boston Public Health Commission is bphc.org. The Boston Public Schools are bostonpublicschools.org. The Boston Housing Authority is bostonhousing.org. And our email is disability@boston.gov. So with that, I want to say thank you to David, thank you to Moran, and hand it off to Commissioner for final words.
Great. And then just one thing to keep in mind too, a lot of city employees like us at City Hall, our email addresses are our names with a period in between them. So David would be david.pina@boston.gov. So that might be an easy way to remember it. But you can always look on the website for specific departments, specific staff that you're trying to get in touch with. So with that is exactly 3:30. I want to thank all our panelists. You did a wonderful job. Thank all our participants. We're really glad that you tuned in. I see a lot of people actually stayed on for the whole thing. We had over 40 participants today. We got a lot of emails. Again, email us at disability@boston.gov. We'll get you any information that you need. And then stay tuned for more announcements because we did get some good suggestions about future webinars we can present, and we will get to work on them probably in the new year. So thank you, everybody.